Boys, I have something beautiful to let you know.
Mm-hmm.
I think Yugopnik will be the most proud of me. But I have finally...
You had a beer? You had a fucking beer!
No, stop.
Jesus Christ.
I have finally gone a desk and a chair.
Hey!
Yes!
So now I am
Oh
sitting...
my fucking god, yes!
He did it.
Exactly right. But it's not in perfect hacking fashion, by the way. It arrived like half broken. the people who brought it up the stairs, they just dropped it on the floor, and the edge of this fairly okay, I guess, wooden table is all fucking chipped to shit.
Love it.
So I have to make sure I don't cut myself and bleed out during this stuff. I'll fix it later. But yeah, but hey, it can go up and down. Wow. So we're moving up in the world.
Congratulations!
Lovely. It's a movie one, but it's a moving one, but it's broken. Okay, so you advanced from recording from under your bed to a table that can literally potentially kill you.
Exactly right. So that's my contribution for the day.
Wow. Proud of you.
Absolutely. As our dear guest can see, this is an incredibly professional, international podcast spanning pretty much almost every continent on planet Earth. But what unites us in our effort to spread the communist propaganda is obviously what we refer to as ghetto productions that we have right here. Even though we're talking shit, but JT is literally sitting right now in like a decked out fucking studio, okay? But still. What's your setup, GDF?
My setup is very low tech. Yeah, I'm just at my dining room table. I have no office chair, gaming chair. Horrible posture. Yeah,
let's go.
It's still kind of early on, so I just haven't made all of those probably very important investments in my health as of yet. But so
nice.
That's proper proletarian proletarian behavior right now.
No overhead.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. The gamier your chair is, and like the fancier your table is, and if you have 3 fucking monitors, and yes, I am looking at 3 monitors right now, that are literally like one monitor is like useless. I just use it for Discord. Like, okay, what the fuck? And then I have one monitor that like just causes me constant brain hemorrhaging, which is my Twitter feed,
of course,
just to be constantly annoyed, and the one that I actually fucking use. But yes, anything one monitor plus a desk that moves. And a chair that is mildly comfortable, that is already petit bourgeois. Marx literally talked about this, and you need to stop talking about what you don't understand, you class traitor.
What did Marx say about the headphones with the cat ears?
Yeah.
The JT favorite.
Yeah, wearing them right now. Look, all I'm going to say, I'm going to tell y'all what my daddy told me. Never skimp on things that separate you from the ground. So shoes, beds, car tires, and chairs, and you'll live a long and happy life.
Fantastic advice.
Oh my god, I love it. My current problem, by the way, which maybe I don't know if people can hear this, we'll get the feedback later, but because I pushed this table right up to the corner of my room, so I'm speaking at the walls, and the sound waves are like hitting me back, and I hear it, and it sounds different. Yeah. So I was like, you know what? I didn't think about this. I should have probably gone the phone, but where the fuck am I going to get this phone bullshit? So I'm going to ask JT about this later. But my makeshift solution right now is just to make like a pillow wall.
Yeah, that's the best way to do it.
Nice.
For the first like 3 years of my channel, I was sitting on the floor in my closet surrounded by clothes. And the clothes just absorb all the sound reflection. So it works really well. Yeah, just toss a shirt or two up on the wall or a blanket.
All
works
right.
right.
Perfect.
And I just have extremely shitty audio, and I continue to do so. And I just force my editors to fucking hate the shit out of me by making this. But no, I have to say I have been a proletarian up until very recently. GDF, I have horrible posture because I recorded everything on a fucking kitchen table until literally 5 months ago when I splurged out. It was quite literally my only like actual material thing that I dreamt about. Like that I was like, I really like just want a setup, and the boys can approve. And when I sent and they said, okay, it's clean, it's nice. I was like, okay, now I'm a proper fucking person doing this internet shit or whatever, whatever you want to call it. But JT, you mentioned the tires, which reminds me, GDF here, we have a long-standing discussion about a car that JT has been building for, I think, 3 decades at this point.
It's a little over a year, thank you very much.
3 decades.
I am pretty sure we've been talking about it since the fucking first episode. This podcast has been running for 2 years now.
Oh my god!
So, but no, do we have an update? And for new viewers, listeners, and GDF as well, tell them what the fucking car project is, and then update us on what the fuck.
Yeah, sure. So I'm building a 1992 Volvo 240 wagon. I'm swapping a 6-liter LS V8 into it. I'm going to have about 500 horsepower to the rear wheels.
Hell yeah, brother.
Hell yeah, brother. That's right. And I just paid, actually, the last... Just confirming this. Yeah, this is the last invoice for the last remaining small drivetrain items and like suspension parts and the front brakes, wheels and tires and stuff. All that's left is to button this thing up, put the wheels and tires on, put the front brake kit on, you know, a couple cooling hoses, the battery.
So another year. Yeah, so another year.
I've been saying this for a long time. It's like, oh, it'll be within the next month, I swear. Just please, one more month, Yeah. Give me one more. But I'm thinking at this point, I was hoping it's going to be before Christmas. Honestly, at this point, I'm going to say it's going to be before the end of January because I just don't think with the holidays coming up, they're going to have enough time to do the work. But it's very, very close now. I can taste it. I'm gonna lick the wheels as soon as I get it. I'm ready. I'm ready.
Especially they might get delayed because literally everybody's fucking sick.
Yeah.
I'm also sick right now.
Me
My
too.
girlfriend's
Yeah.
been sick for 2 fucking weeks with some weird fucking thing. Dr. Hakim, like, I know the planet isn't one place, obviously.
Why is
what's
everyone
happening
sick?
here? But why is everyone sick, bro? What kind of fucking flu is this? Maybe you have access to some information. Are the biochips and our vaccines finally like slowly killing us?
You didn't get the new firmware update. No. Yeah. Basically, I don't know, if you live in a country with a semi-competent healthcare system, so you're not the United States. No, but most countries, they have like basically their equivalent of what is the American one, the Center for Disease Control? Is that
CDC.
Exactly right. The equivalent, the national equivalent for every country has their own basically monitor of what particular influenzas are going around, what particular viral infections are going around. So they'll basically tell medical staff, hey, from August 1st, for example, we have this new strain that's coming around. So start vaccinations, expect more people to come in, blah, blah, blah. This kind of, we've had a confirmed case of this in this hospital, for example. But right now, it's almost the middle of December, so I wouldn't be surprised if influenza A and B is starting to spread around.
Oh my God, it sounds fucking terrifying. Influenza. Yeah. It probably is just a flu or whatever, but like it sounds like my kids are gonna die, and I don't even have kids.
Yeah, various kinds of COVID infections, not only the COVID, but other coronaviruses that cause regular flus otherwise. Regular colds, amongst other things. So it's not surprising. This is the season for it. Don't go around any preschools. That's my recommendation.
Tis the season to avoid children. But I remember back in my day, I'm 78. You get sick. Your tummy hurts, or your head hurts, or you have a stuffy nose, or you cough, right? Or you have like diarrhea or whatever the fuck. But now, like the symptoms are like the inner lobe of your right ear and your left eye and like your eyebrow hurt. Like, what the fuck are these mutations? Obviously, this is a non-scientific, idiotic question that I'll still insist on Hakim answering. But what has happened to like classic fucking diseases, man? I just want to, vomit 3 times, have to sleep for 2 days, the fever comes down, and I'm okay again.
I'll tell you why. The vast majority of infections that made you feel like, a little bit sniffly and all that, those are very common. Those are the ones that you had as a kid, and then you developed immunity against. As you get older, then the variety of infections that can get to you, kind of viral infections, reduce in total amount. There's something like over 200 different kinds of cold viruses that you can get, and each time you get a cold, it's a different kind. It's a different one. There's certain viruses as well that end up with several mutations over their basically lifetime, and that's why you end up with new infections. Even though it's like you can have COVID again or a different kind of infection again. That's a reason for it.
This is why I love running a show with this fuck, because I can ask a completely deranged fucking question. He's like, well, no, I actually have a fucking answer for that.
I'm the meme, the emoji, the guy with the teeth and the glasses.
Actually,
oh fuck. Anybody else need medical advice? Does anybody else need the Hakim healthcare plan?
I'm still pitching into this.
Join the Discord. You'll get it for free.
We have like a $300 Patreon fucking thing where you literally have 24-hour access. Like you get a phone number from Hakim, and you can just call him and get like consultation. That's gonna be much cheaper than just the regular US.
Absolutely.
health.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely, it is.
And I'd kill
And we'll
myself,
even
too.
pitch it. We'll call it something like grassroots socialist
It'll be me.
health movement or whatever the fuck.
It'll be me in bisexual lighting. Don't worry. giving people advice on their chlamydia infections. My God.
The second they call you, the phone like turns all bisexual lighting and shit. It's like,
Yeah.
Yes, honey. Like,
like me and JT just screaming at Hakim in the Discord chat. Yo, bro, you haven't fucking reached your quota of the, like we
Produce
stopped
more.
Even, like, we're not even running a podcast. It just become like a hotline to get Hakim to cure motherfuckers.
Hakim, I'm seeing a disturbing lack of gout in your notes here. What's going on?
Hello everyone and welcome to yet another episode of the Deprogram. Today we have a promising rising star of anti-imperialist agitation with us. He smokes US military talking points, dances on the graves of propaganda, and teaches us the ways of the forgotten nameless soldiers of misfortune. Welcome to the show, GDF. It's a pleasure to have you and thank you for coming. So, before we begin, do tell our audience who might not have had the privilege of checking out your work before a little bit about yourself.
First, I just wanted to say thank you for the introduction, which I don't deserve, and then also the opportunity to be on the show. I'm very honored, and I'm a big fan of all of you, so thank you so much. But I guess to introduce myself, I am primarily, I guess, a YouTuber now. I've been doing videos and everything for a couple of years, and I was a shit poster before that, essentially, for a couple of years before that. So it's been a gradual process, and now it's just long-form content that I guess my beat, so to say, is American foreign policy, which there are a lot of other collateral stories to talk about, with, particularly right now with Israel and then Saudi Arabia, So I think that all is kind of under the umbrella of topics that I cover, day to day.
Brilliant. I mean, it's a very big topic to cover because saying, U.S. foreign policy, that's literally talking about the whole planet.
Exactly.
Because, I don't know, U.S. literally prances throughout it all. But before we properly start, GDF, would you tell our audience what that stands for? Or it stands for nothing and it's just great sounding, which is also fine.
Well, I probably should have said that, but I'll be honest. I mean, like I said, I was a shit poster. I had a meme page on Instagram called Gaddafi Official. So it was, the
I love it.
English spelling of the late Muammar Gaddafi. And when I was branching out into YouTube, I just really couldn't come up with a name for my channel, and I think it's kind of an homage to how I started out and everything. He's a very divisive figure. There's a lot, obviously there's a lot of complicated. He's a complicated person. But I'd be lying if I didn't say that there were things I admired about him. But then also at the same time, his story and his demise is kind of emblematic of everything that I cover in my videos and have for some time now.
Beautiful. That's a lot more thought that went into a name than fucking Yugopnik, bro.
Yeah, so before we jump into the main topic of the episode, I just, out of curiosity, something I've been interested in lately is how lefty and anti-imperialist channels got their start. Because it's very difficult to grow channels like that. I had an unfair advantage because I started with like infographics, general interest. Oh, what would happen if we killed all mosquitoes kind of videos. So I'm curious, was it difficult to grow your channel from nothing to what it is now? Did you find a receptive audience from the beginning, or like was there a particular video that kind of launched you to prominence?
before I really was active on YouTube, I was active on Instagram and TikTok, or that's where I had most of my audience.
So you
initially.
can segue that, okay?
Yeah, there's something to be said for segueing that, but I think it was more important probably to have a video pop off on YouTube, and I think what did was my guerrilla warfare series, particularly the Iraq video, how Iraqis got so good at smoking American soldiers. That was really what I think kind of started
It's a great
everything.
title.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, thank you. Provocative, but
yeah.
Correct, also. But.
Yeah, yeah, true.
It's the only type of smoking that Hakeem fucking supports.
Yeah, exactly right.
Turned into a pack,
Exactly right.
Sometimes one, sometimes a few packs a day.
Yeah.
On a good day.
Oh yeah.
Well, you've also got a number of videos on Israel and Palestine, which is a very hot button issue at the moment.
Hot button in a negative way. The algorithm hates it.
Exactly.
YouTube hates it.
Yeah. So my question, I guess, is how? Like, how are you not getting pulled from the platform? Like, I can tell you from experience that anytime I try to offer a nuanced analysis of the situation, or just even push back a little bit on the mainstream narrative, I get a lot of Zionists or credulous liberals trying to get me deplatformed or reported for hate speech or demonetized or whatever. Is that something you've had to deal with as well?
I think it's. I'm not sure if there has been an effort in a public way. I get a lot of angry email. I have for years. I mean, it didn't all start with, I've been covering the story for years now. So I've been getting angry emails for a long time. But in a public way, I'm sure my videos probably get reported. I'm also aware of the fact that at any time, anything can happen.
Yeah.
And I'm very mindful of that. I think that I want to, for as long as I can, try to push out as many stories regarding what's happening right now in the region. Yeah, so I'm mindful of the fact that it could all be taken away, but for right now, I think it's very, very important. For me to be covering it. Yeah.
Not only this, but also it's something nice to see. Again, not to pull the pull side of it, but if you were to see a Arab presenting kind of person delivering these points, then a lot of white people will be like, hey, there's some bias here or something, because they somehow some people seem to think that there's such a thing as unbiased media. But to hear it coming from your voice and the way that a very traditionally American, quote unquote, presenting, right? I think this gives it a lot more credence to a more neutral audience, which is incredibly important.
The white people just fucking say it.
the whites need to listen. The whites need a white guy to listen to. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
GDF and I are tactical white guys. Yeah.
Tactical.
I mean, Hakeem's now really avoiding talking about white people because we got a whole fucking episode taken down because we got taken down white genocide.
We got taken down for hate speech twice.
Literally, what the fuck? Deprogram, famously known for being Nazi.
We just need one more white fella. We just need one more white fella to outnumber you.
Okay. Speaking of whites, let's start with your bread and butter, the U.S. military getting smoked in all sorts of wars, from Vietnam to Iraq. So give us a top list. What was that YouTube channel where they constantly rank things?
Top
10.
Top 5.
So, exactly. So what are your top 5 U.S. military failures? Please
Number
go in
1.
detail about each one. Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm going to be toxic. Do all of them in that voice.
Oh, God.
So I think number 1 has to be, it's got to be Iraq. I think reading about Iraq is so fascinating. When reading about the American planners, it's just a story of absolute arrogance. Namely, L. Paul Bremer III. His
of course,
decision.
He's a fucking third.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Oh God. But there are more of them. Yeah. But to fire outright the entire Iraqi military, police, all the security services, hundreds of thousands of people, 500,000, in fact, and
One of the largest militaries at the time.
Yeah.
Fourth or fifth or something in the world. Ridiculous. Anyways.
Yeah, that's insanely high, that number of people. And, of course, giving them ample time when they're heading out to grab as many artillery shells and battle rifles as they can get their hands on. It's got to be one of the single most stupid initiatives that the United States has ever gotten behind. And, of course, the resistance used those artillery shells to bomb them into oblivion. I mean, they bled the occupation for 20 years until they had to finally cut their losses. And all at a staggering price, not only in bodies, but in monetary costs, which Al-Qaeda
care about,
Yeah, well, that is at the end of the day. And then, which Al-Qaeda, of course, were paying very, very close attention to. It's like the who would win meme. A $50 billion yearly budget to fight IEDs or a $30 homemade bomb, if that. Yeah. Cost half their war debt, and that is impressive. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I just want to mention a few silly points. My first thing is, I would like to imagine some American military personnel cruising along some street, and all they hear underneath them is as far as I know, those old brick phones were used as detonators through calls. But they did not
multiple times, like it would explode, and like the Humvee would disappear, but the Nokia could be reused.
Exactly right. But as far as I know, they were always on silent. They never had them ring, which is such a shame. Yeah. The meme potential.
The missed meme potential, exactly.
Yeah, that's number one. And number two, maybe I don't know if this is extensively written on in English sources, but prior to the invasion, we saw the writing on the wall in Iraq that the invasion is coming. So from 2000, 2001, and right up until 2003, the central government began distributing RPGs to the population at the time, and. I don't know a single person that did not have one in the trunk.
Yep.
A launcher with, I think, either one or two or three, depending on that they had a system for it. But so that's the second point. And the third point is, maybe this is interesting just to get your opinion on this. The official figures of the United States, because they're incredibly casualty averse, the American military, because it has a high price at home. They clearly lie on their casualty reports. They try to obfuscate it by covering up their own dead, or by not counting in mercenary deaths as casualties of the American military, which is a sneaky way because it's still an American citizen that went over for the purpose of the war, blah, blah, blah. Anyways, but as far as we know, the official death toll is something like 5,000, 6,000 people, but the injured is over 1 million. Now, I want you to explain to me, or maybe you have some other insight, how can a country, or how can a military that sustains over 1 million injured only result in 5,000 deaths? Or do they really think the American people are that stupid?
Well, of course, they have an interest in downplaying the number of casualties. 1 million injured is an insane figure. And it's not just there's injured, but then there's also the after effects. You have all of the men that were, suffered from CTE and suicide and everything like that. So that 5,000 casualty figure, of course, increased substantially after the fact as well. But of course, they have an interest. I mean, many countries do, but of course, the U.S. has an interest in downplaying their casualties, as I'm sure is probably happening in Gaza right now with the Israelis. That's definitely being downplayed because it's very unpopular the more and more casualties you have. And that's part of what had the Israelis pull out of Lebanon finally in 2000. So they actually, they want to downplay it to continue the bleeding.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was number one. Give us at least two more.
Oh, geez.
US military failures.
Yeah. I get carried away. Obviously, that's one of particular interest. Well, I guess, of course, number two would have to be Vietnam.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, with the National Liberation
Yes, horrible.
Front.
Jesus, that sounded fucking fucked up for me. I'm like, wow, the whole war was worth it, so we can make a top 3 list.
Yeah. Well. I think that they set the standard, if anything, for the the organization of guerrilla movements, and particularly with regard to propaganda. Also, their ambushes with small fire and booby traps, and their tunnel systems. And of course, you notice a trend here, IEDs and mines. Again, the U.S. was its own worst enemy. They dropped many millions of cluster bomblets onto the ground, and these fighters would risk death and horrible injury to go out and collect these bombs. And they set up these small, essentially bomb factories. There were these workshops where they were sawing open these bombs and creating these booby traps and mines. And maybe half, maybe even more of killed and injured, importantly as well, were from these. And virtually all of these ordnance were made from American material. And then I'll include, of course, Lebanon as number 3, which is, I'm actually reading about that now, and I think that's kind of overlooked. We're talking about American failures. They went in 1982 after the Sabra and Shatila massacre. They didn't last very long, only until 1984, after, the Shias in particular just hit the U.S. and Israelis anywhere and any way that they could. Hit and runs, nail bombs, roadside bombs, snipers, and of course they made liberal use of suicide truck bombs, which wasn't an arbitrary or a lot of people have this idea that it's a fanatical weapon. There were very careful considerations for its tactical propaganda effectiveness, and it was very effective. They had the bombing of the U.S. Embassy in 1983, which killed 60. That was actually the deadliest day in the CIA's history. Killed 8 of their officers, including many very senior officers. And then in 1983, just a few months later, I mean, they were relentless. They bombed, of course, the barracks housing the Marines. That building disappeared. The bomb was so massive. The building itself was lifted out of the ground, suspended in the air, and dropped and collapsed onto itself. You have 241 dead Marines. At the same time, they bombed the French as well, killed many of their paratroopers. And only 4 months later, Reagan said, fuck it, and they pulled out, and they didn't even bother to retaliate. That's, an example of a very successful, and of course, these were claimed by Islamic Jihad and later Hezbollah. Islamic Jihad is considered by some to be a precursor. And Hezbollah, I think, would have to be one of the most successful examples of a guerrilla organization that became somewhat of a state within a state. There's a kind of success after success. I mean, they pulled out in 2000 finally, and then 2006 again. That was an Israeli defeat.
Absolutely. Thank you for the great top 3. I think an honorary mention that we've all forgotten, but it was a great meme. I think a year and a half ago is those 10 dudes that got arrested by Venezuelan fishermen. That is a fucking legendary classic. Whenever I am having a stressful day, and I think the world is slowly burning up inside and outside in a literal and metaphorical sense, I just think about the Venezuelan fishermen and I smile and I go to bed. But speaking of which, and very in character to the topic that we're discussing, what is it about the world's most advanced, wealthiest, and best equipped military not being able to absolutely annihilate any foe it chooses to face? Is modern warfare just a waste of time and lives?
Paper tiger.
Both sides.
Paper tiger. Paper tiger.
Let me do the question. I'm kidding. I love you. Where both sides just end up worse off in the end, or is the modern U.S. military apparatus adapting? Is it even possible to adapt to fighting guerrillas and rebel forces and so on?
With regard to adapting, I think, Iraq was decades after Vietnam. And Iraq, there was far more advanced, not only weaponry, but also technology for surveillance. There were drones throughout. They used electronic eye scanners to create a database of retinas. Nothing worked. It was just more and more money spent, and therefore a bigger and bigger success for the resistance. One book for me that was important early on, I cited a lot, or his work a lot, William Polk, his book Violent Politics. It's a short history of terrorism and guerrilla warfare. He has a formula. He suggested war is 80% politics. And, if that's what they call winning the hearts and minds, and that's what they called it in Vietnam. In the beginning of his book, he tells a story of giving a talk at a war college, an American war college, and this is in the 1960s, to a bunch of military. And they're totally outraged at his suggestion that he said flatly, you've already lost. Ho Chi Minh is the embodiment of Vietnamese nationalism. You've already lost. You can't take that away from them. In Iraq, even if many people hate Saddam, when you begin doing raids house to house, ransacking homes, arresting all the military-age males, putting them through the torture centers, you're hardly going to win the hearts and minds. The subjugation that occupation entails naturally breeds resistance. So the occupier will begin what they call counterinsurgency. What does that mean? Well, in Lebanon, they raided small towns and shot anything that moved and took all the men aged 16 and up and brought them to detention centers to be tortured. You're doing Hezbollah's recruiting for them at that point.
Mm-hmm. And also, an important point to just build up on that is that when it comes to the anti-insurgency, quote-unquote, anti-insurgency tactics of the illegal settler colonial entity, but also the United States as a result, it has usually very little to do with winning the hearts and minds. It's just sadistic nonsense. It's a racist and orientalist attempt at dehumanizing the so-called enemy. It has nothing to do with trying to quell this. They just want to spill as much blood as they can, cause as much chaos as they can, because they know in the end they're going to be forced out of wherever they're in. So they just want to create as big of a scar as they can before they leave.
Yeah, of course, that's the cover is, we want to actually spread freedom and democracy, and they're going to love it at the end of everything. No, they have no intention of that. And then with Israel right now in Gaza, of course, we know for a fact people are just either willfully ignorant, but we have the facts already. In 2008, Gadi Eisenkot, the head of the Northern Command, said plainly that, we have a new policy now. So we're going to call it, we're going to name it after the neighborhood of Beirut that we completely destroyed, called Tahia. And every single neighborhood in which any shots are fired from, we're going to completely destroy it. And knowing the weight of what he was saying, he elaborated and said, this isn't a suggestion. This is a plan that has already been authorized. He's explicitly authorizing the targeting of civilians. That's what that means.
Which is a war crime.
Which is
not
major.
Destruction of civilian infrastructure, regardless, is considered a war crime. I mean, we don't even need to begin listing the war crimes because we're going to be here all day. But
yeah, that's true. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and a lot of people tend to give a counter argument to what we're saying right now, saying, pretty much every military in the world does it, and almost every state that participates in direct conflict with another state kind of does it. And to an extent, I would say, okay, I agree, but almost no state, I would argue, not a single state except the United States of America, sells this as, oh no, we're actually doing a good thing. Yeah. We're doing a morally justified thing. Most states say, they use the, again, very cliche, but, national interest, or, they are hurting our state's potential growth, or if we do not strike first, they're going to, this is going to come and bite us in the ass, etc., etc. Very often, those are also very flimsy arguments. But at least they are not based in so much insane hypocrisy, and therefore do not cause as much reaction both from the populace of the country that is going to war itself, but also the rest of the world. Literally, to quote my dad, that's shoved in my head from back in the day regarding what the GDF quoted about, no matter how much the local population might not like a particular guy, he literally said, I hate, so I don't completely dox my dad, I guess, and threw it myself. But he said, I fucking hate our guy, and he spent half of his life actively agitating against him. But at least he's our bad guy. Having, our bad guy being replaced by a foreign bad guy is far worse, and literally leads to nothing. It's not even a comparison of what is lesser evil argument or whatever bullshit like that. No, it's an historical fact that an occupation force is always 700 times worse than whoever you have locally being a piece of shit ruler. And don't even get me started talking about how, especially nowadays, nowadays, most of the information we have on who was either unproductive or lazy or very often villainous leader of particular states and republics, most of the sources we get on those particular leaders, presidents, marshals, fucking commanders, whatever, comes from the very same states that engaged in interventions in those particular countries. So obviously, even if they, kicked a dog, which is obviously bad, they're presented to us as if, they eat children's eyeballs every single morning. But continuing on in our lovely, lovely conversation that is already proving incredibly fruitful, just like Hakim's ballsack. On your channel,
I knew something was coming. God damn it.
On your channel, you've covered many forgotten atrocities, from what the Contras did to the horrors of the Korean War. What is it you think that makes some people, quote unquote, unfortunate casualties and others rightfully targeted civilian victims?
I shouted out William Polk, but another early book that was very important for me, which is probably not surprising at all, was Manufacturing Consent, of course. The thesis of that book plays out every single day. And right now, I have putting a lot of emphasis on what's happening in Gaza. I think what is happening there is extraordinary. But right now in the Western media, what happened on October 7th, an atrocity. There's no debate. There's no serious debate publicly about what happened, and that's horrific. I mean, there were when I heard about it, I was personally it made my stomach churn. It was a very violent event. But after October 7th, it's an unfortunate product of war. It's not really, since they voted for Hamas, so they all deserve it, right? So you can literally see it happen overnight. That's the thing that's really fascinating about it. I mean, there are other examples in Cambodia. We were bombing Cambodia. They were unworthy victims. Oh, it wasn't so bad. We only dropped 500,000 tons of bombs. It turned out to be well over 2 million. But even right now, okay, the Western media is completely silent about Saudi Arabia shooting hundreds, if not thousands, of Ethiopians along their border with Yemen. They serve our oil and strategic interests. China doesn't. So talk ad nauseum about their surveillance state and whatever else. But what's happening with Gaza right now in Israel, I think that is a perfect current example of that playing out.
Absolutely. A dash of Orientalism, some spicy internal propaganda, and just at this point, especially with what is happening in Gaza right now, a very black and white picture of these people do not give a fuck about international law. They do not give a fuck about claiming moral high ground as representatives of Western superior culture, yada yada yada, but only and exclusively personal interest. And it kind of brings to a point, and a very at least for me, angering, is that a term? Very anger-inducing, let's call it. Point that you could excuse ignorance to a point up until, I don't know, the 60s, 70s, the 80s, afterwards, fuck no. But now in the 2020s, at this point, where we've gone through so many quote-unquote conflicts, more like pure imperial wars, that even a layman civilian not seeing the hypocrisy behind it all is to an extent unforgivable, because it's so right in your fucking face that you are either a fucking demon or so incredibly naive and propagandized that you should most likely go back to 6th grade, respectfully, which we will call 6th grade gulags, not re-education camps. We'll just call them school camping trips. Recently, very much on this point, recently the letter written by bin Laden after the 9/11 terrorist attacks became relatively viral all over U.S. social media, and it was very weird to me as a non-American that people were actually and unironically baffled by the words written. They didn't attack us because they hate burgers, fries, freedom, and fireworks. It's so fucking mind blowing. People like 1 million liked TikToks talking about, oh my god, like they didn't just do it out of hatred. So do you think the classic quote U.S. delivering freedom argument, the concept which, by the way, many attribute to Kissinger, as we covered in a previous episode, is kind of dying off, becoming less and less believable, or does it still click with the electoral body? If not, what direction do you think they might start taking? And this is an open question. Obviously, we'll start with GDF, but I want to hear JT and Hakeem as well. What's the new thing? I don't know. Right to self-defense? I really like that one. That's a fucking new, spicy one.
I think when it comes to the electorate, it's kind of a complicated question. You have... In the United States, a lot of the left is very pro-war. They've shown themselves to be very jingoistic and very pro-war. Liberal Democrats they're all for what Israel's doing to Gaza, without exception. Even Bernie Sanders. I mean, a lot of people were very just heartbroken. I mean, for me, it was just so enraging. And a lot of people, I think, were really... This was really... Bernie Sanders was like a bastion of kind of like, not even really radical, but very left on the far left of the political spectrum in Congress. But so you have a lot of the left, it's clearly shown themselves to be very war. It's really the radical left that is anti-war. But also on the right, it's not in any way an altruistic thing, and you may not even be able to take their word for it. But there's a kind of on the populist right who are. For selfish reasons, not altruistic ones, that they appear, to their credit, they appear to be anti-war, but it's mostly just, I don't give a fuck about Palestine. I want to fucking, take care of our veterans or whatever. So that's interesting. But I do think as an American growing up, it was very baffling to me how little the sentiment of we need to be the world's police. People will pretend they don't think like that, but they absolutely do. Oh, yeah. They think, there's a despot somewhere. Are you just going to let Assad gas his own people? People expect us, we have a responsibility, whatever. Okay, yeah, we have plenty.
My favorite, which by the way, sorry for the, my favorite, before I forget it, actually comes from people that call themselves like hardcore leftists, socialists and anarchists and so on. Better us than someone else.
Yes, I hate that one.
How do you say that sentence, bro? Sorry, please continue. But
no.
Yeah. I'm just spasming over here. My fucking chair is rattling.
Yeah. What pisses me out? Oh, God. Well, I mean, when I hear, like, the world's police, it makes me fucking cringe. It's a disgusting idea. And the idea that, us going in and carpet... Yeah, I am the immoral one because I don't want us to interfere in another country's. But you want to carpet bomb them. That's what you ultimately want to do. I'm the one who's lost his moral bearings. But But as an American growing up, how little that's changed has been really. With regard to Osama, I should say, because you asked specifically about his letter, the fact that people are surprised, it's very telling. Osama bin Laden's interview, and Ayman al-Zawahiri as well. Their interviews, you can find them on YouTube. They've taken them all down. Their statements aren't readily accessible. But if you watch Zawahiri in as early as like 2002, or you look at, more importantly, bin Laden's hard drive, they emptied the contents on the CIA website and everything like that. You look at his reading material. What was his reading material? Chomsky, William Bloom. Actually, in a speech he gave, he shouted out directly one of William Bloom's books, Rogue State, which is a great book, by the way. It's a great book. And he quoted it at length. He was very politically motivated. It wasn't fanaticism. It wasn't radical Islam. It wasn't that he hated the United States because of their liberal democracy. He hated the United States because they bombed Iraq, because we furnished Israel with the weapons to level Beirut, which he directly cited as the moment that he knew that he wanted to topple towers in America. and so on and so forth. I mean, he was very political. I've studied Bin Laden for a long time, and I know that when he was a young boy, he watched on TV footage coming from Israel and Palestine, and he cried watching this shit. I mean, it was very effective. It had a big emotional impact on him, and that followed him through the rest of his life, and all of his followers as well. Zawahiri, all of them. Zawahiri saying as early as 2002 in an interview that we're aware of not only the damage we did during 9/11, but now we're still bleeding them. He was talking about the casualties, but of course the monetary cost. They were very aware of all of the political and economic implications, and that's what they were targeting ultimately, I think, in my opinion.
Absolutely. JT, you're on the ground there as well. What do you think is going to be kind of a more, let's call it, tolerable or less see-through argument being put forward for future U.S. interventions? Because as we all know, there will be plenty more as the empire slowly draws some of its now not last breaths. Let's be honest, we're not going to see a multipolar world tomorrow, but you get my fucking point.
One thing that plenty of people have mentioned before is we're already beginning to see the weaponization of identity politics to say, okay, we need more women fighter pilots, we need more LGBTQ representation in the CIA. It's like, okay, Jesus Christ. So a masking of these evil tendrils of empire under the guise of acceptance or representation or whatever group hasn't been tossed a bone recently by the Democrats, probably are the ones going to be spearheading this particular initiative, will be brought into the fold in an attempt to give a shot in the arm to U.S. meddling abroad, to say, hey, you are welcome, you are seen in the military. You are just as capable of driving this death machine as this white guy. So
girl boss.
Yeah.
If you're criticizing U.S. intervention, you're actually criticizing black girl boss.
Exactly. Yeah. It's very transparent to people like us because we've been in this for a while, and it's very. We live in a society, but we live in a society now where justifiably people can point to instances of people criticizing anything to do with LGBT representation and say, okay, you're just you're transphobic, and that is a huge problem in places like the United States. There is that bigotry, but it's a very convenient facade. It's a convenient way to get around legitimate criticism by basically using, gay people or black people or whatever as quote, to use the term, human shields to prevent legitimate criticism of empire.
Absolutely. So, but have you been following the on-the-ground fighting between Palestinian and IDF forces? How's the situation developing, in your opinion? And I know Hakeem has been following it as well, so I want to hear both of you. The actual fighting between the forces and so
yeah. Well,
how they moved into Gaza and etc.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I have my Discord and everything, and we have we update regularly whatever combat footage we can get, and it's kind of sparse, and and it's not always indicative of the overall broader trend. But what I've seen is, Hamas has made, and Islamic Jihad, all of the resistance collectively have made what looks to be liberal use of course, rocket launchers, but also mines and booby traps and everything, in a kind of an echo of the NLF in Vietnam. Gadi Eisenkot, the guy I actually mentioned earlier about the architect of the Dahia Doctrine, the targeting of civilians, the systematic targeting of civilians. His son was just killed by a booby trap, and so that was a welcome development, of course. But yeah, so the I think mines and booby traps. I think there is an emphasis. It appears. I think it'll take some time to see. But I think it appears that there is an emphasis on, rocket-propelled, munitions, and then there is some use of mining and booby traps. Personally, because that appears to be just among the most effective weaponry that you can use, I think, based on what I've read about guerrilla movements.
Absolutely. My favorites are videos coming in from Israel, which is them walking through rooms and shooting at walls, using literally copying the way that Palestinian forces release their videos with those little red arrows, which have at this point become like an online symbol of dog whistling, who your dog is in the fight. Just their inability, and they have like fucking GoPros on every other soldier, their inability to actually produce footage where they're, taking any of their opponents actually down is concerning, but not in a bad way. It's just like, what the fuck? Like, you released this, and this was like literally sent back to their intelligence agencies. Somebody watched it, somebody added the things, and these are not released by gonzo journalists online. This is released by official Israel pages on Instagram and on Twitter and their official websites, and this is sent over to BBC, CNN to actually post in like prime time news. Imagine how much they're lacking actual footage of anything, if
they resorted to staging. My God, they resort to rounding up whatever civilians that they can, and then stripping them, sending the pictures out, and then everybody's like, wait, hold on, where are the weapons? So then they had to do a reshoot where they basically apparently made them strip and then made them give their weapons, which makes no fucking sense.
That's the logical order to do it,
and first of all, half the people in those
sorry
pictures,
for the resistance forces ball so big that they hide AK-47s in their crotch.
Exactly. My God, half the people who are in those photos that they released, by the way, have been identified as civilians. The people you can actually make out their faces. People are saying, it's like, oh, this is my uncle. He's a shopkeeper. He, blah, blah, blah. Oh, this is my brother. He works as a nurse in this place. This is his name. And then they show pictures, and you can see, it's like, these are random civilians that you're picking up.
Don't you fucking know this?
What I was going to say, too, is that my favorite part of the staging and the reshoots is that in one picture, the guy has the weapon in his right arm and like standing out as if he's about to drop it. And then the second image, it's in his left arm. He's standing out as if he's about to drop it. And they're like, oh, no, hold on, switch arms again. There's one of my favorite ones is so clearly staged. One of them has a pistol in his hand. He's like holding it over his head up on the air with his finger on the trigger.
Nice.
Right? And I'm like... yes, because this is what you would do if. Oh my God, how stupid do they think people are?
Apparently a lot, and apparently they are. And that's the saddest part of this entire conversation.
My favorite part is, by the way, like there is no shortage of Queaslings and fucking traitors amongst the you can find people who speak proper Arabic to do something with, but the either they're so racist or so incompetent as to be unable to find people, so they've resorted to basically dressing up Israelis in what they think Arabs dress like, and then having them speak the most broken fucking Arabic, or very like somebody who's learned it academically but has never learned to pronounce the stuff properly, so you can hear his their incredibly thick Hebrew accent. It's
What decades of Hollywood movies do to you? Literally, like Tom Cruise dressing as a Russian general, walking into, I don't know if you remember that fucking scene, and I think it's a Mission Impossible, walking into the fucking headquarters on the Red Square and going up to like the security officers in the front and just speaking full sentences in Russian to them that literally sound like, dude, you just walked out of Yankee Stadium or whatever the fuck. And they let him pass, and then he meets politicians, and everybody's like, oh yeah, that's my boy, like Tom Cruise, a classical Russian, let's drink vodka and dress in Adidas. It's decades of thinking that nobody's gonna see that these people are not actually from this particular place or not, does to your brain, but speaking of like brain rot, and moving towards the conclusion of this great episode, Amy Schumer, a great intellectual hegemon, told me Israel isn't an apartheid state, and that comparing it to South Africa would be a mistake. I have a feeling GDF might disagree. Tell us what kind of insane arguments you might actually have against some of the world's greatest political analysts like Gal Gadot, Amy Schumer, or that fucking nerd from Stranger Things. By the way, he has an amazing video on this, which will be linked below.
Oh, thank you. So, Amy Schumer, the foremost expert on human rights in the occupied Palestinian territories. I actually, in my video I made about Israeli apartheid, I cited a report from Michael Link, who was the special rapporteur for human rights in the Palestinian territories, occupied Palestinian territories, OPT. As he put it, and many other people have put it, but this was the UN's leading expert on human rights in the occupied territories. And as he put it, there are elements of apartheid that you saw in South Africa that aren't really there in Israel and Palestine, such as, maybe segregated water fountains or something like that. But what he called petit apartheid. But there are many parts of the apartheid system in Israel and as well as the occupied territories that you did not see in South Africa, including segregated highways, high walls and checkpoints, extensive checkpoints, just everywhere, a barricaded population, namely Gaza, and of course the routine mowing the lawn, as they put it, of just massacres of civilians, of a civilian population. You didn't see that in South Africa. In the Bantustans that you see in even just the West Bank, not even just Gaza, but in the West Bank, you have over 150 different little islands that are completely, when I do a lot of coverage of guerrilla warfare, and there are ways to completely cripple a resistance movement. And I think, sadly, what you've seen in the West Bank is an example of that with the PLO and everything. When you completely rob a people of their freedom of movement, that's a prison. There's no way they can organize at that point. For now, as it is now, but what you see you don't even have to really say Gaza. In Gaza, what's happening in Gaza is far worse than what happened in South Africa. Even in the West Bank, it's totally horrifying, absolutely horrifying, and unique in the world. I can't think of another. Let's go back to Gaza. I can't think of another Gaza. A military enforcing what Michael Link called a medieval military blockade. You're cordoning off 2 million people into an area that they can't leave, and routinely killing large numbers of them in what they call mowing the lawn as a form of population control. That's unique in the modern world. I can't think of another example of that. So the claim that's often put forward that Israel is the world's most moral army, I avoid making general or statements. I try to be quite conservative, but I think I can only conclude that Israel may in fact be the most immoral. The world is a big place. Yeah. There are many militaries. That's a very bold statement to make, but I can't think of another situation.
It's a tough leaderboard to climb up on. It's like fucking...
Yeah, it is. Absolutely it is. Yeah, but I don't know. I feel pretty confident in saying that.
Yeah, absolutely. I suspect the United States probably has done the most evil in the world in the last 100 years, but I think the most per capita evil that probably goes to Israel.
Exactly. Yeah, and also Israel is mostly just a cancerous offshoot of the United States, so it's not.
That's true.
It's
a client. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
But just looping back on the Amy Schumer point, she put up a post recently, which is on Instagram, where it says, "Who's really behind anti-Semitism on campus?" And the hashtag is Hamas on campus.
Oh my god! That reminds me. I saw one of those stupid Hamas billboards the other day. I was driving in Fort Worth, and
Hamas billboards? Oh my!
These big pink billboards that say Hamas is your problem too. It's like, wow, what is Hamas doing in Fort Worth, Texas? Like, come on.
Yeah. No, they're about to come over the border any second now. But hold on.
They're taking my cows.
If you go and look through her stupid links, like the link tree. Oh my gosh, you need to be informed. Yeah. This bullshit. You look through it, and then it has a list of an unhinged list of all the people who are apparently under the reigns of the resistance. And these include Doctors Without Borders, Human Rights Watch, UNICEF, Amnesty International, and the UN.
The UN. Just the UN.
Yeah. Nice. Yes, the UN as an
famous Islamist jihadists of the UN. Yeah. Oh you know what the blue helmet stands for? It's metaphor.
Well, it's like when I was reading about. I think it would be better maybe to pivot to what you were talking about with regard to, Hamas is a problem in America itself as well. I was watching. I don't know if you guys have seen. Barry Weiss did a speech at the Heritage Foundation in which she was basically arguing that very dangerously, this was a really troubling thing I was watching, that all of the protesters, all the people protesting Israel and in support of Palestine, and were basically being reduced to supporting jihad, and that was kind of jihad, as she puts it. I know, of course, on my own that jihad basically, to the vast majority of Muslims, means like any mundane struggle against sin, daily, day-to-day life. But as they're putting it, jihadists.
It's a war against self-improvement.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, but I really was very troubled by that, and something she said was so stupid. It was so insane that I wrote it
From
down.
the Heritage Foundation? Oh, surprising.
Well, yeah, right. I won't soon forget it. She said, "We must wage a war if we seek to build a world fit for our children, and if we want to save America itself."
Okay.
And I thought,
blood and soil, Sieg Heil, Brand,
America. You think America is at? We need to commit a genocide in Gaza because we're saving America itself. I thought that was so insane. I was like, and that really just like symbolized.
Biden's doing such a good job of that.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
That absolutely blew my mind. I think that was a moment where I thought that we've kind of lost touch with reality. You could also call that psychosis. Among large swaths of the American populace, I was really alarmed by that. That was very alarming. Yeah.
Look, the most interesting development of this is a very Leninist weeks and years and years and weeks type of moment or situation where basically the entire geopolitical setup that existed prior to October has completely crumbled to dust and will not return. The fall in standing that the United States has experienced, and by the way, and the international pariah status of the illegal settler colonial entity as a result, how heavy the label of supporting that is nowadays. This is a massive shift that will reverberate over the next couple of decades. I think this is the maybe I'm being slightly optimistic, but if in the early 60s when the UN imposed an arms embargo on South Africa at the time, this was before the sanctioning proper, right? So it was just an arms embargo, which is still better back then than what's happening now. But I think that is the equivalent moment, right? Afterwards, it took another 30-some years and several military encounters before apartheid in South Africa fell apart. But the current illegal settler colonial military occupation is no more solid. It is just as fragile as that previous system. And the more they go down this far right, hyper settlerist perspective, when you kind of strip away the foundational principles of that country when it was first founded through labor Zionism, the idea of maybe there should be some sort of cooperative existence, but the Europeans coming in are the ones who are going to run the show and own everything and have exclusive political power. But there should be still some sort of balance at the very least. And that's being very generous to them, by the way. It was still a horrible existence. This is being completely shed for we need to completely expel the several million Palestinians from this land through, oppression or through bullet or in any possible way. The sea that they find themselves in of complete... I don't know what the right word would be in English, but the absolute disdain that the entire region feels for them, even across ideological and other points. And of course, by extension, the world as well, that has developed. Several countries have pulled ambassadors, other countries have cut diplomatic relations. Several large businesses have decided to reduce their total investments in or completely eliminate them by pulling out entirely from that particular market. This is a shift that we didn't see in the past through all the misery and pain that illegal occupation has caused over the past 70 plus years. Nothing of the sort has happened. And at the end of the day, the price is very high, I would say, of course, but it's not any higher than it had been prior either. This is basically a sort of a sped up timeline of what they were going to do regardless.
Absolutely. And I think that is, as depressing as it might sound, a positive note to end this episode on. At least hopeful to an extent that,
we're always hopeful. We're always optimistic.
Yeah.
The truth always separates itself from falsehood. This is a divine precondition, first and foremost. Secondly, the resistance of a people so attached to their land and so connected to the environment around them. These people can never be uprooted. These people will never be separated from their essence, which is their country. Even if they were to be expelled or no matter what else, they will always come back. That nation will never see peace. That illegal military occupation will never know peace as long as it is illegally occupying this land. A new conversation will take place once a egalitarian and equal democratic process takes place in which every single citizen of that land, regardless of religious affiliation or ethnicity or whatever else, has equal political rights and, of course, democratic ability to participate democratically within the government. Only then could some sort of reconciliation happen. But that is still a long ways ahead, I think.
Filthy radical people being treated equally. Oh my God, I have a
Exactly
dream.
right.
What is this fucking liberal on my podcast? Shut the fuck up.
Exactly right.
No, absolutely. Couldn't have put it. I don't think anybody could have put it as well.
Beautifully
as,
put,
beautifully
Hakeem.
Hakeem did. Yeah. So, with that being said, thank you, unironically, GDF, for an absolutely brilliant episode. I think you will most definitely be a guest that comes back on again.
Yeah, for sure.
I'd love
think
nothing
the
more.
audience, thank you very kindly, sir. I think the audience will love you, and the audience will be able to find your work in whatever links
Check
you
his
send
stuff
our
out.
way below.
Banger
Absolutely.
after banger. Absolutely. Check
Sick
his stuff
shit.
out.
Sick
Seriously.
shit, man. Very good shit. But let me not take the privilege of plugging yourself. Wait, that sounded kind of homoerotic. At the end of this lovely session that we just had right now. So GDF, please tell our audience where they can find you and what they can expect from your content.
I am on YouTube, of course. I'm GDF, Golf Delta Foxtrot on YouTube. And then I'm also on Patreon. I post everything there. And I'm on Twitter. And that's basically it. Twitter, I'm GDF on X. I post everything there. I will continue posting about Israel and Palestine, about Gaza in particular. And I plan to expand into traveling, going on location.
Oh, nice.
And
Awesome.
and yeah, just so I think I have plans for the future, and I hope that anybody who's willing to watch, I have plans to definitely expand and tell the story in a more compelling way as much as I can.
Before we wrap up, I just have to say my levels of liking this guy was 12 out of 10, but now it's down to 10 out of 10 because he fucking called it X. This motherfucker called it X.
Everyone hates that.
Son of a
Everyone
bitch.
fucking hates that shit. I'm new to Twitter. I'm very new. So, but yeah.
You fucked up by even coming on. You'll regret this for the rest of your life. But please check out the links in the description below and check out his amazing work. When it comes to our show, thank you so much for our wonderful patrons without whom this show would absolutely not have been able to run. There are multiple tiers over on the Patreon where you can go and choose to support us through. You can get many stuff like access to our exclusive Discord server, get early episodes, get exclusive episodes. The lowest tier is one exclusive episode a month now, which we have upgraded, and the higher tiers get 2 exclusive episodes absolutely every single month, as well as every single non-exclusive episode 1 week early, as well as hangout sessions with yours truly. With that being said, thank you so much for joining us, GDF. Thank you so much to our audience for joining us today, and see you next week.
Be sure, again, to re-emphasize, this is the third time I'm saying it, banger after banger. Go check out his stuff. With that being said, this has been the Deprogram. I'm Hakeem.
I'm JT.
I'm Yugopnik.
And I'm GDF.
Come on, give us a quip. Give us a quip.
Put him in the
Put on the spot.
And go the fuck to YouTube to watch GDF. Hey, that's what it stands for.
Let's go.